Good morning from Tokyo. If you're joining from the US, I hope you're staying warm. I've seen, we've got cold weather here, but the stuff I've seen you guys have been going through. Please stay warm, stay safe. Um, and wherever you're joining from, thanks so much for making the effort. It's probably not a perfect time or day for anyone. Um, I'm not going to stand here and kind of educate you about what you should or shouldn't be doing with AI. As Matt said in the introduction, a lot of my research, the research teams I'm involved in, the projects that I've developed in the last 4 or 5 years are all focused on helping learners grow. We're definitely in a time where critical thinking for students, and I believe educators too, has become imperative because of the rise of technology and us kind of trying to keep up with it. So I'm not going to tell you what you should or shouldn't be doing. I'm just hoping the kind of overview of what I discussed today will spark more curiosity, maybe new ways of thinking, or perhaps reasons for you to reach out with each other or with me to help us move forward and keep fighting the good battle, which is to basically help our students become ready for the world, which is, I think, the most important thing. I've been in Japan about 20 years. Most of my research, as you heard, is focused on technology, but also how to engage learners in their learning as well. Not just switching off, as technology does have the capability of doing. We see everyone on the trains in Japan or walking down the street, any country in the world, and just kind of scrolling on their phone and getting absorbed into it, which can be a good thing too. But obviously, we have to be aware of what that may entail for the development of their brains and characters as well. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to start sharing my PowerPoint. If this doesn't come through well or it's not transitioning, please just give me a shout and let me know. Technology, as you know, isn't always perfect and can actually be a real pain sometimes. um, anyway, I hope that's coming through. So, as you can see, the title, as I think you've read already, is At the Turning Point. Educators Navigating AI's Next Wave. So I'm going to discuss AI, kind of where we've been, where we are now, and potentially where it might go next. As I said, I don't have magic answers for any of this. A lot of this will probably resonate with you. You've been through these same experiences. Um, I'm most interested in talking about where we are right now, but I do want to discuss a little bit at the end of what might come next. And if you do have questions, throw those in the chat. If you don't have time to discuss them with me today, just reach out. I'll give you all my contact information at the end. So, waves, as I call them, I just like the design and the idea of things coming in waves. It has very much felt like that with AI. So we had this kind of first wave that I'll discuss quickly. The years aren't exact. I'm just kind of giving a region, a time when this probably happened for everyone watching this. This is when it certainly happened for me. So we had this thing, ChatGPT, just jump into our lives, and we're like, wow, we're just kind of blown away. This is the future kind of feeling. That was the first wave. And then we sat down and we thought about this and we watched what was going on and we felt what was happening. And we were like, uh-oh, are students getting lazy? Are they getting stupid? Perhaps we're still in this wave, actually. But I like to think that kind of ended last year or the year before. And then we started to come into the way, which I'll discuss mostly today, which is this one of, okay, it's here, it's powerful, it can be dangerous, it can be a wonderful thing. What are we going to do with it? How are we going to integrate it into our learning process? How are we going to put some kind of control on it? And how are we going to make it a beautiful thing for students rather than this terrifying thing that we all know it can be? And then what happens next? I think we are at the moment, thinking about what to do with it. I'm going to give you some examples of things going on in the world, some of the things I've done with students, some of the projects I'm working on within research, um, and then the unknown, what's going to happen next? What might be that fourth wave of AI? So this was the first one. Everybody here knows about this. It doesn't matter if you're a teacher or not. Um, we're all just wow, amazed by this thing when it first came out. And AI has been around a long time, as we know. It isn't a new thing. It was just the accessibility of it and the personalization of it. This thing that just jumped into a mobile device in the hands of our students. We're all suddenly like, okay, wow, what's happening here? So it was exciting. I mean, we had a lot of new possibilities in the beginning, right? I think technology brings this excitement. Um, First questions we kind of had was, okay, can we make things more efficient? Can we differentiate the learning for students? And one that we all ask, and we ask every day now as well, can I do less work because of it? Is my workload going to reduce? And we know the answer is yes to all of these, which is a great thing. Um, but it was out of control. This thing was out of the bottle. You know, we rubbed the magic lamp, and out came this genie, and it granted all these wishes, and everything was going perfectly well. But we quickly realized that the flow of information and the technology that we were getting involved with um, was surpassing the learning, and the gap was widening between the pedagogy and the critical thinking and the learning skills of students for what they were being handed to use. So, from that first wave, this happened. That may have been you. That was probably me, not in a physical form, that teacher in the photo, but definitely with inside my head, looking at students like, what is going on here? Um, and this feeling of the students are getting lazy. What's happened here? This technology, what has it done? Um, can we not put it back in the lamp or in the box? Can we get rid of it? Um, so it changed into panic, really. Um, I think this flood of amazing homework that we all experience from our students, those essays or reports that we gave as homework suddenly became PhD level or higher. And you're suddenly like, okay, this is going to be a problem. Loss of student voice concerned me a lot. I think all of you too. Just the humanity dropped out of the work that students were doing. And critical thinking, has it gone away? Is it still there? What are students doing? What are they thinking? So, what did we say as teachers? What did we do during this wave? This is still going on, possibly, but I'm hoping we're moving away from this. But why are they all cheating? Where is this cheating coming from? You see all these videos on YouTube or Facebook, or even people publishing research about their reactions to how to stop cheating, and videos of professors shouting at classes. Um, that's certainly not a way to go anymore, because we're trying to walk upstream if we do that. AI is here, it's changing. Gen Z, Gen Alpha, their way of thinking about the world is going to be very different from our own. We have to go with the flow, but of course, we have to put restrictions in place to help guide them. Um, you can see also it said, they're getting more and more stupid, they're addicted. I think possibly all of us are becoming addicted to it. We're addicted to our phones, that's for sure. Um, but AI as well, maybe that is the next big addiction, or maybe it has already become that. So, not a nice wave, something we've all gone through, perhaps we're still going through, but there is hope. Um, so, this is where I hope we're finding ourselves now. Um, After those first two waves of excitement and then panic and frustration, um, we, in my opinion, are now in the third wave, which is what I want to talk about mostly today. What do we do with it? How do we integrate it? Everybody here is trying to do that. Everybody here is trying to think of ways to make it a positive influence on the lives of their students. Um, and it's not easy. And as I said, I'm not going to offer you magic solutions today. I wouldn't dare do that, because everybody here at this webinar knows something big about AI that I have no idea about. There's far too much for anybody to master what AI is. It's a constant race to keep up with it. It's definitely a test of your humility. um, you have to admit that you're a student and there's a lot you don't know. And when you hit that point, um, I think you're in a good place, rather than trying to control it, or, basically try to pretend you know things that you don't. I think we just have to take a step back and really look at what's happening, and that's how we can move forward. So I'm going to introduce four different areas, which I hope will be very useful for everyone here today, which you can take away and use to look at your own context as a teacher, for your students, sorry, so that you can actually help create a better framework for your students so that we, harness things like critical thinking, and also for yourselves as well. I think teachers are going through a huge amount of stress, particularly in the last couple of years, about what to do with it. Is it not only threatening my position as a teacher, but um, am I doing the right thing? How can I make sure I get the right grades, that my students are learning as they should? How do I create trust? I think trust has been a huge issue between me and my students as well. So I presented about this a lot in the last couple of years, and I think people are really getting on board with these four categories now. There probably are more, but this is what I'm going to talk about. So the first one is connecting with the students. So how can we match the learning environment to the needs of the students? The world is changing, and AI is a part of that change. And our learners are changing. They're a different generation from us. So how can we continually adapt the environment which in their learning to help it match their goals and the future world that they're going to face? That's a big thing that we need to do. So connecting with them. Guidance. Everyone here as well has been working on this. There is no perfect one size fits all for AI, but we need to find ways to help make it clear with students what they can and can't do with AI. um, it develops trust. And I think many of you have noticed when you talk to students about what they're doing with AI, they look like they're more open about it, and you do develop a bit more respect and trust with them. So it shouldn't be taboo. It should definitely be an open discussion with our students, an open discussion with our educational institutes, and a case of empowering us as teachers to really help guide them in whatever context you're teaching in. This is the one I love to talk about the most, and I think is probably the most pressing at this time, is keeping students thinking. Basically, maintaining critical thinking within our classroom practices, within the assignments we set, within the discussions we have with students in class, or what we ask to do them away from us, where we can see them. Really helping them grow and really helping them develop as people ready for the future world. An assessment. This conversation comes up all the time. And you can see this in all the research that's happened last year. I'm sure will be in the research this year. How do we assess students? Now that AI is there, this genie is out of the bottle. It can just do everything you want it to do, pretty much. Um, how do we grade them? How do we make sure they're learning? How do we make sure they're going forward? Because the age-old um, essay written on a computer is dead, basically. You can't ask students to do that anymore, or you can, and we look at how they created it rather than what they created. So process versus product. I'll discuss that as well. So I'm going to go through these one at a time. Um, if anything does catch your attention, you want to ask a question about, I recommend putting it in the chat or writing it down, because I go far too fast sometimes. I keep trying to keep up with myself in my conversations. So make a note of it or something. So because I am just going to keep moving. So the connection part, matching the environment. So what we need to be doing is watching students, really. I think a lot of us have been very much involved with just kind of looking at what AI does as an outcome. We need to be connecting more with what students are doing to get to that outcome. So really just looking at their workflow, and I'll give you an example of something like that in a moment. Diaries are pretty good. They can keep logs of what they've been doing. So not only can we see what they're doing, but ways that they're making decisions along the way. And this will connect with the assessment part that I'll talk about in about 10, 15 minutes from now, probably. And also their emotional states. I think it's very interesting to actually look at how students are feeling in terms of their confidence, frustration, levels of engagement. Um, Basically, what we need to do is have a better window into what's going on in the minds of students when they're doing their work. Not an easy task. Sounds theoretically wonderful. The big issue with this is obviously time for teachers. That can take a lot more time than just collecting work from students. I'm fully aware of that. I don't have a perfect solution for this either at the moment. If you have small classes, no problem. Bigger classes, we'll have to find more efficient ways to do this. But I'll share with you something that I think is a good starting point, and I presented out about and published about actually 2024 at the end. and presented about last year, I created a checklist. You can get it with this QR code, but please just reach out to me and I'll share it with you anyway. Um, Basically, what you need to do is just watch. You have to listen and you have to look at what students are doing. I think there's a huge amount of us still, myself included, who don't really know what students are doing with AI. And away from class, obviously, we can't know that. And we probably shouldn't. It's not really our business. But in a classroom environment where we are the teacher, we do have the opportunity to stand and do nothing. I'm also a big believer in just watching as a teacher and letting the students do all the work because you can actually be a very good facilitator, observer, and guide by just watching rather than talking. So I'll take you quickly through it. This is not a magic solution to the problem of understanding students' use of AI. A lot of my research focuses on learner engagement, and I think a lot of people know what engagement is now, but if you're not so familiar with it, it can be broken down into a lot of different things. I break it down mostly for AI in terms of behavior, emotions, cognition, the social aspect of engagement, so talking with a teacher, with classmates, and also the agentic aspect. So are they being proactive? Are they actually going after information or just kind of waiting to be told what to do, which I don't think is a great thing as a student. Um, anyway, so on the checklist, I encourage you to make your own version of this. Quite happy to just give you this. It doesn't solve problems, it just makes you think about where they might be if you have integrated AI into your learning environment, which many of us maybe have done, maybe intentionally, or maybe it's just there and there's not much you can do about it. So anyway, the first one is looking at the behavior of students. So this part A, um, look at them, ask them, look at what they're doing in class. And because AI is there, in your opinion, it doesn't have to be based on any empirical data, but on your opinion, are they doing more or less work because AI is there? Speaking more or less, number two there. Three, are they taking more chances to participate? Four, is there more or less equal participation because of AI? So on the right there, you'd circle what you think. You could say more is happening. That's a good thing. That means AI had a good impact on it. It could be less. That means, maybe there's an issue. Maybe AI has taken something out of the engagement that I wanted to be there. Or the other one as well is actually, a lot of people can choose this, that's fine, which is NCNS. That means there has been no change, or I just don't know, I'm not sure. And again, this isn't to find magic solutions or anything like that. This is just to give you an idea as an educator watching your students, what impact AI may or may not have had on them in terms of their engagement. And engagement is proven in research to be very important, not only for well-being, but for academic outcomes, and also longer term, intrinsic motivation is linked to it, all these kind of things. So you can see from that example there's one less, which is number four. So they're participating less equally in pair work or group work because of AI. So perhaps I'll give you an example. Maybe you let students use ChatGPT in groups to have a debate. And ChatGPT would be like a facilitator or as such, or something like that, or an extra group member, which is great. It will offer a lot of knowledge, a very high speed, tailored exactly towards what they're talking about, maybe give them things to back up their arguments with each other. But perhaps because of that, you've noticed that a couple of group members no longer speak or no longer take part. That could be bias in the information from the AI, inaccuracies. It could be language level differences between the students. Some of them could take up what AI is saying a lot quicker than others. So that would concern me as an educator. And I maybe wouldn't have noticed that if I hadn't just stood and watched. So that's the behavioral engagement. Emotional engagement, again, I've underlined do you think, because it is just an opinion. You can't know what people are thinking. You can ask them. They may not always tell you the truth, obviously. This is about if they're enjoying it or not, really. So that's also important for their motivation. Cognitive engagement, again, do you think? So you'd be asking them things like, looking at how deeply they're perhaps considering things, their critical thinking within the language learning process or just classroom interactions as a whole. Social engagement. Maybe some of you have noticed this without making a list like this. Maybe you've noticed that students speak to you far less than they used to in class. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing, but you'd be aware of it. And agentic engagement. I like to see students asking questions and I like to see hands raised. And I like to see them being proactive to go after things. If AI is making that happen, wonderful. And I think it can, and I've seen that happen with AI. If it's not, and you're finding students crawling back into a shell or just kind of waiting to be told what to do because of this influx of new data and guidance, I would say that's probably a bad thing. The point is, with a list like this, you can generate a score. The mores we like. This one we like over here. This is a positive impact of AI from your perspective. The less one next to it would be, in my opinion, cause for concern. And you should go back through your list and have a look at where that might be occurring and address those. And the same with the NCNS, which was no change or not sure. Those 11 total there, 6 and 5, I would look at again and think about it. I would say, okay, is AI doing a good job there, or what changes would I need to make? So this is just an example of something you can do to connect with students. I'll send it to you. I'm happy to do that. Or just encourage you to just to stand and watch and reflect more on what's going on. I'd like to share an example of something that's happened recently as well. I like to share things that are not just me, obviously. So Keio University, I don't know if you know Keio University. It's a very good, very big established university in Japan. They actually have gone ahead and started planning what they're calling the AI Native Initiative, which I think is a fascinating idea. I don't know how it's going to work out for them, but I'd like to share with you their idea of connecting more with students and the environment that they work in, and basically helping students mold it, if you like. Um, there's a link at the bottom there. Again, if you get my slides, if you want those at the end, you can access it and read it. It's an English article. Um, so they basically want to shape their environment to match the needs of students, the habits of them, and also how they actually work. Um, I thought that was a fascinating approach, and it sounds theoretically wonderful. Um, so basically, they know that AI is just changing everything, and they want to really open the door to it, invite it in more, and actually build their infrastructures to reflect it, to use students' use of AI to learn more about what they're doing, and then try to match the learning environment a bit more closely to it. I don't know exactly how that will work out, the exact details of it, but the theory behind it is fascinating, and I'm wondering how they're going to move forward with it this year because it was only announced last month. So yeah, the students are the active partners. They're the ones that are going to do it. So big data, I guess I don't know if you'd call it big data, how much data it will be, but basically collecting what students are doing and like iteratively, excuse me, try to upgrade or mold the environment towards what students are doing in terms of possibly the courses or assignments or interactions and things like that. So it's across disciplines. They need to understand it because AI is different for all the different contexts that we learn within. I mean, we're language learning educators here, I believe, most of us or all of us here. And that would be very different from a math class or a science or a medicine class or something like that. AI is being researched in all those fields, so universities have a lot to do in different ways with AI. So I wish them luck, and I'm going to keep reading what's happening with it. um, so the next one after Connect is now guidance. I mean, we're all working very hard on this, aren't we? And basically helping tell students what they should and shouldn't be doing, what's expected of them, what is too much with AI. Um, and, we basically have come up with a lot of things. Some institutes are much further ahead than others. I think some teachers are further ahead than others. I don't consider myself at the front. I'm still learning about this, but I do use some frameworks and discussions with students depending on what they are studying. As you can see there, discipline specific is now in the third wave. I think, in the beginning, we just made numbers and said, okay, I'll show you an example, which is good, but we need a bit more than that. Agreements, perhaps you've done this with students, I don't know. at the beginning of courses, actually, maybe saying to them, okay, this is what you agree you will and will not do, kind of contractual, quite strict. I'm not 100% sure if it's a great way to start out with students with AI, but perhaps I think we've been doing that a lot now. Policies in context, of course. Yeah, so for each assignment, that's important now. Um, I don't think anybody should be creating a guidance of AI use within a course and just using it as a blanket thing across the entire semester, particularly if you have different assignments with different focuses. For example, some might be oral assignments, maybe presentations, some might be written, some might be listening, some might be debates. Um, don't forget that the goalposts will move on what they should or shouldn't be doing with AI because of the assignment as well. So, I'll share an example. I think everybody here may have seen this already. I've been quite a fan of the simplicity of this scale. I've used this for a classroom debate with my students last semester, which they loved. I gave them this as a homework assignment and said, okay, think about where this might apply within our learning context, and we're going to come back and we're going to discuss it in class. And it was fascinating. It was probably my favorite debate of the year, actually. Um, so this is T cell related in T cell connections. This was published, and this has been revisited time and time again about people who have maybe misused it as well, because it's perhaps a little simple, but it's a very good starting point. Um, so if you've used something similar, that's great. There's 5 levels. One at the top there, no AI. AI is evil, get it out, don't touch it, kind of thing. All the way down to number 5, which doesn't say, let AI do it. That should never be at the top. This is AI exploration. So this is saying kind of work with it to help you create and, adjust everything along the way with your teacher as well. So we've got all these different levels. I hope that you found one that suits your context. It takes a lot of time to explain these to students, of course, and I don't think they digest it fully. So I think examples are very good as well, if you can. I've used screenshots of specific AI use by myself, like maybe trying to write an assignment or come up with like research questions and things like that. Students get it a lot quicker if you have just screenshots, or do a live demonstration at the front of the class, I think is good too. I think they need a lot of help to get what you're saying, that these aren't just like, rules. This is guidance to help them, because ultimately we're trying to make sure they don't get in trouble and they learn and everything's fair for everybody in the class. Also, especially if some people have less access to AI than others, I like to limit it to free ones as well, if possible. So yeah, it's a good outline. I think that as I was saying, what we need more now of is things that are specific to the courses. That's definitely coming up. Things that are specific to the assignments that students are doing. So I'll give you a real world example. I don't know if anyone here has been to Stanford. Maybe you have. Maybe you know more about it than I do. I've just been following it. There are many stories. I just picked one out that I thought would be of interest because it aligns with what I've been talking about, and they are fantastic universities. We know Stanford, so um, they've been using their policies more recently, last year, to help define, make things more clear for educators and students by tailoring AI expectations to specific courses and assignments, which is very good. They have been letting departments set the boundaries, I've seen as well, which I think is great because it is department specific how you use AI, and to fit the academic norms. I think that there should be more empowerment of departments to make outlines rather than universities as a whole. So I hope that is happening for you wherever you are. And I'm also obviously a big fan of the teachers being probably the most empowered in these situations, because we are the ones who are seeing what's happening with AI with our students. We're the ones that are aware of the changes. I'm not a big fan of top-down decision making on policies. So I think it should start from the classrooms where possible. Um, yes, Stanford have been working on this, and I'm sure a lot of places have now, which is the third wave, which we're talking about here today. Making things assignment level specific, get rid of this ambiguity, make sure students can understand at the beginning of every assignment what AI can and can't do with them in it, or what you expect them to use it for or not use it for. It takes a bit of time. There's definitely an investment of time needed to make this happen with students, but please do it. It's good practice for you as a teacher as well, and it keeps us thinking critically about what our students are doing, which we also need to do as well. And they've actually been requiring educators, I've read at Stanford, to actually, actually go through it themselves and build trust with their students by actually telling them specifically what they can and can't do, what's acceptable and not acceptable with their students. So this kind of forced dialogue between educators and their students, I'm a big fan of, but um, yeah, it's difficult, especially if you don't have confidence about it yourself. So just find something that you think is very simple as a starting point. Perhaps the guide I just showed you, the 5 point guide, or something similar, just so that you as an educator can start learning more about what is okay and not okay with students. Because I think a lot of us, myself included, aren't 100% sure, um, depending on the assignments or courses, what is going to be okay or not. I would just say, remember the goal is to help students get ready for the world by growing. That crosses everything. That basically is what we should be doing in a classroom. That's very, um, my own perspective of the world, but don't get bogged down in the language learning too much. I mean, that is, of course, important. They should be getting better at using whatever language you're teaching, but also them as a person. We have that responsibility to guide them to become more capable to leave us and go out into the world. So next one's reflection. Now, this one, yeah, I love to talk about. I think it's on everybody's mind, and that really is the kind of focus of the third wave there. As you can see, it's this kind of how do we integrate it to keep students thinking? So how do we get students to reflect on what's going on? There are a lot of great activities I've been watching at conferences, and I've read online. I've been trying to publish about recently with my research teams as well. Um, Very simple things as well. One is just comparing humans and the technology. So basically, you could, as for example, as a teacher, give students two versions of a short paragraph. One could be written by, AI, it could be written by, Copilot or Gemini or something, and the other one written by maybe yourself or someone else. And the students can look at those and compare which one is why, which one do you prefer, why. And this deeper dive into what they're getting with AI is a fantastic opportunity to bring more critical thinking into the learning process. That's one example. Another one, auditing. Nobody likes to be audited if they ever have been. I haven't, thank goodness. I don't know what that experience is like. People, I guess, in some way, as a teacher, we're always audited. I guess people look at us and kind of, evaluate how good we are or at what we do and everything. So, giving students the opportunity to do that, to put them in the driver's seat to judge something, um, definitely makes them think about not only, the pros and cons of those things, but also a bit more about themselves and a bit more about how to do that. That's a life skill. So basically, you could say, okay, everybody, here's a prompt. I want you to put that prompt into, these three AI tools. Let's just say ChatGPT, Copilot, and Gemini. And basically, I want you to show what the outcome has been. What has it told you from that prompt? And then I want you to compare which one you think was better, which one was not so good. Why? Did you recognize any bias in those tools? Um, so this is kind of like, the way we would analyze media English, for example. This, you look at the bias that's being used, anything that's not clear, which one do you think is more appropriate? All these kind of things that you can have students do. These are wonderful exercises, and I really encourage them not only to help them learn, but it sets the mood perfectly in the learning environment of AI as a tool, not a leader. Um, I'm going to give an example of this one in a minute that I think is pretty cool, actually. It's not in a classroom, but I'll talk about it in a moment. Prompt design challenges. Perhaps you've tried this. It's very fun. You could say to a class, for example, okay, um, you've got a maximum of three prompts to create. I've done this with research questions, actually, to come up with a research question. That was a great learning experience with them. You could do it for anything, to create a story, to create even a test for this course. put the students in the teacher's role. That's always quite fun too. And so you've got three prompts, and then we're going to look at all the prompts and we're going to choose the winner. And we're going to say why they're the winner. Why did they do the best with using AI as a tool to get what they wanted? Again, putting focus on the process rather than the product, which is good. Fact checking, wonderful thing to do. Everybody here knows that AI can really throw out some things that are just not true. Um, and even when you question it directly, it will say, "Oh, you're absolutely right. I'm sorry about that." So there's a huge frustration from us, definitely from students, I think, who probably check these things a lot less than we do. Um, so having them check answers against trusted sources or alternative sources, we might say, if they're not all trustworthy, that's a great thing to do, and I think that's a great way to get our students thinking about information that comes their way. And debates are good. What is cheating? That's a simple question, and putting that to a class, I think you'll find you'll have a very, very interesting debate. Even in a second language, students will put together really interesting viewpoints. And I like to have forced debates where you say, the for and against teams are assigned. So a lot of people might say, AI is not cheating. Well, you would force them to say it is cheating and join that side because it's great to see the other side and think in that way. Um, so these are things you can do to get students to reflect. There are a lot more things. I'm always willing to hear ideas about how to do this stuff. I think these things are imperative at the stage we're at with AI in education in this third wave. So please do play around with those or contact me if you want to share ideas as well. Um, I actually, well, you can hear from the way I'm talking about this, I'm very passionate about this. So last year, I actually did a TEDx talk about this as well. You can find online, and there's none of this is for sale. Obviously, this is all completely free. I actually went as far as to create courses and materials that people can use for free, depending on the language level of their student, or just general discussions with their students based on that video. Um, Basically, I talk about, not forgetting that AI is a tool. Don't let it take control of you so that you stop growing as a person. That's the kind of gist of the talk. And I've shown it to all my students. I'm embarrassed when I put it on the screen. I don't like watching myself, but I think the video is not alone. There are a lot of videos out there, and they are being watched a lot. There are lots and lots of views of these videos. A lot of people have downloaded, and I hope using those free materials I put there as well. And this is a great way to get students to reflect. I use this as a part of my seminar course now to actually make sure they've sat and thought about what AI is for at least, an entire class before we move forward with it. And my website's there. I'll show that again at the end. You can get everything. I won't throw lots and lots of resources at you. You can just get everything on my website there as well. Yeah, and I wanted to share this one. It's not a classroom, but I just think this is pretty cool in terms of the approach it's taking towards AI. And this is actually the Global Prompt Engineering Championship in Dubai. Started last year. This is basically a real competition with real prize money to see who can use AI the best. And it doesn't just say, okay, here's AI, who can get the right answer. I believe the evaluation of this contest is also on the process they go through to get there. So, who is the best prompt engineer? Who's the one most capable of using it? This to me is wonderful. This is the future we're heading towards with AI because you cannot hide away from it. It is always going to be a competition who can do what with it. So, this is talking about strategy, how they judge what, AI is telling them. They then have to iterate and critique and refine their prompts, not just for one topic. I believe it's also about things like art, video games or videos, gaming and coding. So different areas of life or professions, how good they are in those categories. Um, and this really says, yeah, the human's the important part. It's not AI. I think that's the most beautiful message that's coming out of a competition like this. The human will be the champion, not AI. AI is just the thing that's sat there that they're going to use. Wonderful. Um, and it also gets them to look at what's good and bad about the AI. It actually criticizes it along the way in their evaluation, their scoring as well. That's great too. Um, and it also shows that, yeah, we don't get automated by AI. We're humans. We're the ones doing all the cognitive work. It's a tool to help us get there. So, um, I don't encourage you to take part if you're not interested. I imagine they're pretty amazing at it, the people in the contest. And I just wanted to share that as an example because I think it's just a fantastic example of things going on. So, I'm going a little bit slower than I thought, so I'm going to quickly jump now into the last one I'm going to share with you today, which is the assessment part. Yeah, how do we grade students now because of AI? What are we going to do with this? We've all been battling with this. Um, Portfolios are very popular now. I don't know if anybody wants to reach out to me if you've been doing that. I've started to try to do that. Obviously, it's much more time consuming. Students are quite surprised when you ask them to write down exactly what they're doing with things, maybe suspicious at times. But if you explain it's a part of your evaluation and you won't have a test at the end, they seem quite happy about it. Oral defenses, I think that's always been a good thing anyway. But if you have people submit work, obviously there should be some element of if you've got the time or if you think it's necessary, perhaps maybe you don't, but you can actually have a conversation with them. It's very quick to one, know if they did it or not, accountability, and two, it really develops their thinking skills on it because they know that's coming. AI free checkpoints are good. You can actually ask them to put their phone away or any technology away and say, okay, let's see what you can do in English now, whatever you're teaching them. And they know those are coming. You should just tell them that's going to come so they don't become too reliant on it. And you could say you should practice without any technology, obviously, at points in the learning as well. Um, People are doing this. I haven't done this too much myself, but this is kind of like that scoring contest I just told you about. We can ask students to actually show us how well they're working with AI. I haven't used a rubric like this. I'd love to see one if some people are doing it. How can you actually assess how good a partner they are with AI? Because that might be a life skill after university or even after school, whatever the students are that you're teaching. How well do they partner with it? How effective are they at using it? And that would obviously mean to produce wonderful things, that are theirs, that they creatively came up with as a student, not just given by AI. So these are different ways to assess. As you can see, there's much more now about the process of the learning. I really do believe that's what we need to move towards. But it's time consuming, it's not clear. Policies from universities with exams, it does go against that. So, it's tough, but it's clear to us all now that with AI, we do need to be looking at what students are doing along the journey rather than just what they come up with at the end. UNESCO, here's an article from the real world, of course, not just me. I mean, that's a great question, just the title there. What's worth measuring? The future of assessment in the AI era, the AI age. Getting away from just memorizing to reasoning, more critical thinking they talk about in there, obviously. Process over product, as I said, the journey, not just the outcome. Um, Context of real world grounded tasks that are talking about. I'm not 100% sure I agree with this, but it talks about using tasks that AI cannot easily replicate. So, making it harder for students to use AI and it has to be more about them. I don't think that's exactly real world, in my opinion. I think in the real world, they'll just do that anyway. They will, a lot of tasks will be able to be done by the AI, but that's what it discusses. Yeah, and using more defenses and dialogues and, conversations like I was discussing as well. Seems to be an agreement that those are all the things that we need to be moving towards as well. Um, and using AI ethically, making sure they know how to use it responsibly. Um, that can be in the assessment as well, I guess. So those are the things I wanted to talk about today. I've just got another minute or two left, so I'll quickly, before I finish, just talk about what I talked about and what might not come next. So the first wave, we're all amazed. Again, these years, not perfect. They're just a rough idea of when this happened. Um, our students were getting lazy. We all panicked. Maybe you're still panicking. Please don't, because you need to be in this third wave, which is now certainly. How do we integrate it? What do we do with this thing that isn't going away rather than fighting against it? How can we work with it? And what comes next? So I'd like to share a few quick ideas about that. Um, it will become saturated, the world. That could be, for example, people become more focused on the co-creation with AI. How do we get students to work better with it? rather than just integrate it into the classroom. It could be more about process assessment, the assessment things I talked about. Next, could we be talking about completely throwing away this old kind of end of course exam thing and assessment along the way instead? More about the meta learning that's going on, more about how they think and regulate themselves using AI, or perhaps just being, good at using AI in the right way. So these are, I think all of these are going to be important. I'm wondering which is going to become the most important, to be honest, in the future. Um, that's it from me. As mentioned at the beginning, I run two big projects. One is the University Grapevine, which is a global newsletter for educators in higher education, and Culture Club, which helps connect a lot of educators around the world for virtual exchanges with their students. These are both free programs, and the best thing to do is just go to robertstroud.org. That's my website, or you can track me down on SNS, Facebook, or LinkedIn as well. And I would just like to say thank you so much for listening to me. And that's about it. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks. Lots of food for thought there. I'll just preface any Q&A with one comment from myself, which is I always appreciate it when people are able to do what you do, which is take this very complex, fast-moving, often overwhelming thing and make it presented in a way where it's like, okay, yeah, I do have a good handle on this. So I really like the framing of it, especially this movement across time. And I do have a question about just that model overall. Like, where did that develop from? I mean, when did that start to appear for you? Because we're still talking about kind of a small window of time, but so much has happened over the past few years. So how did you come to that three-wave model?
Yeah, well, currently I'm working in a research team, a lot of people from a lot of different countries to look at the changes in trends of research in AI at the moment from a research perspective. And we've been going through the data in the last couple of months. This has been going on, since late last year, and we'll be publishing that later this year. And we've been making comparisons of the shift, as we call it, in focus of what AI is and what it should be. And this is just something that we need to keep track of because AI comes in and we have these hype cycles of technology, don't we? There's this initial excitement, and then this kind of critique and fear and negative, and then we kind of plateau out towards okay, it's a part of our life. This is what's happening. I think a lot of it, Matt, has come from the research we've been doing, looking at a few thousand research papers recently in peer-reviewed journals that are looking at what they should be focusing on in AI. Is it assessment? Is it critical thinking skills? And a lot of it, raw data that we have at the moment has moved from it as a tool, what it can do, now towards, okay, how do we integrate it and how do we make it part of an effective learning process? And words like engagement and critical thinking flew up out of the research in 2025, much more than all the years before it. So there's definitely now a realization that we're shifting towards that kind of thinking. And that kind of maybe come up with, I don't know if waves is a good word. I kind of like the design of the ocean on there and stuff. But it's this kind of change of thinking towards it. Yeah, if that answers the question.
Yeah, initially it definitely brought a tsunami to mind where it just felt like, wow, this thing just came over fast. Question in the chat, a lot of nice comments and a little bit of discussion throughout, so I won't go back to that. I think there's just kind of positive feedback of kind of saying this looks helpful. Quick question here from Nansuk Kim. Thank you for your engaging, inspired talk. What suggestions do you have for instructors teaching college students, some of whom are not interested in learning to use AI as a tool effectively? And I will follow this back because thinking about ways I've heard a similar thing with some of my colleagues say, you know what, some of my students this semester are saying they want to unplug or they don't want to get pulled in. So, any thoughts on that kind of resistance or lack of interest?
That's a great point. There is a group of students in every university or every school that feels like that, and I think that's great. My own kids, I've got young kids, and my eldest is 10. She recently told me I don't want anything to do with AI, and I thought, okay, that's great. Um, so I think they need to have a certain level of awareness of it. Obviously, we all do. We need to know what it is and what it can do. But I would say then for classes like that, the debates, if they've got the language level to do a debate, if not, help them prepare a lot with maybe if it's, an English course, and you want them to speak in English, help them a lot with the preparation of the language with planning through and things. Um, but actually have them debate their side of it and talk about it, or maybe just focus on why they think it's a bad thing. Um, there are good sides and bad sides to it, and if students saying, "Look, we want nothing to do with it," and I think there is a sense of fatigue among a lot of students who have, like us, got caught up in this whirlwind of excitement and then kind of gone, actually, every time I use it, it just makes it harder work for me. Because students aren't that good at using AI. They really aren't. They think they are, but they have so many issues we all see as teachers. And I think they learn, like, you know, some of us are seeing that, using it makes it much worse or harder. So I would just encourage them to have the free choice. Ensure that your assessment then remains fair as well as a big thing. Because if some students do use AI and some decide not to, um, we shouldn't be rewarding the ones that used AI to come up with something incredible. So basically, trying to create fairness amongst in the assessment, but also maybe just openly discussing their viewpoints on it might be good too.
I think that's a great point. Yeah, we're running low on time, but we're getting some great questions. So we might not be able to come up with all these. Um, what do you think are the biggest blind spots for instructors and students with AI? What are people missing? Jennifer Youngblood.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think I would really say the biggest blind spot up until recently has definitely been fatigue amongst students as well. What I kind of just touched on. I think a lot of our students are really overworking themselves with their screens now to get work done because this thing that they see all their friends doing to, help with their homework, help with their assignments, whatever. Um, it's exhausting using AI and techno stress is arising again in the research. If you look up the word techno stress, it's been around for a long time. There's a lot of people now focusing on that again, about how students are becoming quite stressed because of it. And it maybe connects with the thing I just answered before, which is, um, that we need to give students the ability to unplug, like as you said. Um, so in terms of blind spots, I would say the biggest thing at the moment is just remember that this is a lot for our students to take on, um, and find out how they're feeling about it and giving them options to opt out, like you said, if they want to, and trying to make sure they don't overdo it with screens because it is just becoming an enormous amount for not only reducing critical thinking, but also their own well-being. I think student well-being connected AI is an enormous topic at the minute as well. So please just think about helping them take care of themselves, maybe.
Thanks. And I think that's a great way to wrap it up. There's some more questions we're not going to get time to, but I think one of the takeaways that I got from this is we don't have to have the answers to all these things, but I think one of the things I was seeing in the chat, that tool where it said look at it through emotion and thinking these different ways and really thinking and understanding and listening. I think you framed that really well. And I think that is helpful to not to shift the bar, shift kind of the framework of saying we don't have to come out of this, but engage students more. So I really appreciate that emphasis on the listening and the student side and the human side because I don't want to lose that. So thanks again, Dr. Stroud, and thanks everybody for attending and participating. I've put these links into the chat. We welcome your feedback on this event. If you would like a survey from our group just to acknowledge your participation, we can provide that afterwards. Dr. Stroud provided his contact information, his website, again, it's his name.org, and then we'll provide the recording on my TESOL through the TESOL site. I've noticed just my own understanding of AI grow so much these types of webinars. So it's great to have people joining and just keep pushing this knowledge forward. It's never a boring job. It's busy, but it's never boring. So thanks everybody. This is what your participation makes the community work. So um, We have another upcoming chat. So we kind of do two things right now in our webinars. One is this, we focus on important issues and we have webinars and we really go deep on some topics. And then we also do this kind of world tour. And so we look at ELT in different contexts. And so we heard a little bit of that today. It wasn't our focus, but teaching in Japan shapes kind of your view as well. But we're going to zoom in on Colombia in an upcoming webinar. So we hope you'll join us there. And if you or a colleague might be interested in leading a webinar or a coffee chat, please reach out to the higher education interest section. We'd love to discuss some options with you. So thanks again, everybody. And I wish you a good evening or a good afternoon or wherever you are, maybe a good morning even if you're Zarina and some of our colleagues in the morning time zone. So thanks again, and we hope to see you at an upcoming event.